So were you able to follow up with the videos? How did you think of the first kind of lecture?
I really like the lecture, and I feel that you have a lot of depth of knowledge, and it'll be interesting to watch in the future once we start, coding practically. So I'm
Mhm.
really excited.
So in
And
that case, I guess from today the fun starts because we'll be taking up our first simple app today, and we'll be together figuring things out how we'll be able to do everything. And since like this is all unscripted, so even you'll see what issues I face and the actual the paths or the things I do to get after the problems to just correct them.
okay, that makes sense. I'm excited to see that.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So, do you have a Mac or a PC?
I have a Windows laptop.
Okay. So today we'll cover this few topics. The first one is the installation, right? I'll brief you about what the platform channels are. We'll create a new project. I'll tell you what the kind of skeleton of a Flutter app is, what is pub spec, and we'll go ahead and create a new Flutter app. I was thinking about a calculator app, so we'll get to know how to arrange different controls and widgets and how to handle theming. I am not guessing we'll be covering theming in this section because that will be like way too long. But we might in future when we are talking about theming, we might take up this same project and then apply the dark mode and light mode. How do we adjust those and how do we make a centralized theming for the app? How do we manage typography in the app, etc.
Right,
So
right. Because that I think is very important because I was when I was doing it by myself,
hmm,
um, people said that you should have a class or a file created
correct,
with just about your theme so that you can
correct.
only make edit in one section all the time.
Exactly. So, first of all, we might have several screens and pages, right? So we do need to have a centralized theming file that kind of, is able to, we are able to implement that across the different Dart files. So, we get one centralized space where we can define everything and change everything. So,
Okay.
are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I've just headed on to the install section of the flutter.dev website. Installation in Windows is pretty straightforward. I guess you might have done this. Have you followed through this?
I have a Android Studio on my laptop.
Okay. Um, okay, so since I already have Flutter installed, right? I won't be going through the installations. I'll be just running through the steps, right? So there are kind of three steps to install the Flutter. First one is obviously get or download Android Studio. Second is we get Flutter, which the Flutter framework file as a zip as is downloaded from here, the Flutter website, right? You can place it in any folder that you want. I'll take this up once I write the third step. That is install plugins, and that's all you have to do to install Flutter for Windows, right? Again, you'll have to the first step would be you'll have to set the paths of Flutter no SDK inside Studio that I'll be showing after we create the project, right? So firstly, SDK, right? So you can download this SDK and extract it wherever you want. What I've done is I've just created a folder, right? I have it in my D projects and then Flutter folder, and I've just this extracted folder here. So I just downloaded the folder and I extracted it here, right? So this is kind of my Flutter SDK directory path. Now plugins, right? In Android Studio, you can search and download. You'll have to download two plugins. One is Dart, and the other is Flutter plugin. Again, I'll explain you this to last steps once we create a project, right? Before we create a project though, I want to introduce two paths. So there are quite some different channels for Flutter, right? The first one is stable channel. Stable channel is the channel that we got in the last web page that we had the blue download button off. Stable channel releases, I guess, once or twice a year, gets updated once or twice a year. And this is the most stable channel, right? And once you get this SDK, you can be sure that like you can run your uh, production ready apps from the stable channel, right? Because all the bug fixes and everything has been done into the stable channel. Now, if we come down to the beta channel, right, we can use the beta channel to test, right? To because new features, what how they are added is they are firstly added in a master channel. Then no, once they are fixed with some bugs, right, they are then pushed on to developer channel, and then they go to beta channel. And once everything has been done, right, fixed, then they the last channel is stable that you get once every 6 months. Beta channel is, I guess, upgraded every quarter, and Flutter Web, which we were talking earlier, is in beta channel, right? So you won't, if you are installing stable, you won't be able to access web or run Flutter Web. Um, I'll show you how to kind of change channels. We just have to type in two commands, right? Flutter channel, and then the name of channel, and then we have to write Flutter upgrade. That is the changing the channels itself is very easy. Um, Going on to developmental channel again. Currently, Windows or the desktop, execution can be handled from developmental channel, and the most updated channel would be the master channel, which is updated like every now and then. You can expect many bugs, right? Master channel, and please don't use any of these channels, last three channels, for your production ready apps. Um,
Okay.
yeah, this is just a command to clone the master channel. If we are downloading the stable channel, we can just place the file, zip file here. So that is what I've done. I've placed the file here. I'll just go ahead and start a new project. Uh, yeah, so I have Android Studio open here right now. I'll start a new Flutter project, Flutter application. I'll say calculator. Let me write Flutter calculator. This is a Flutter SDK path, right? Just getting from here. One of the things you should note is whatever your project location is, right? I don't want to set this. I want the project location to be projects tutorials. I'll go to code. This should be my project location. I'm setting it here. In Flutter apps, right? Just make sure that whatever the project location is, you don't leave any spaces here, right? In the whole path, not just in the parent folder, right? You don't leave spaces. You just do an underscore there, because in previous releases of Flutter, some projects were breaking. I had experienced those, and after doing those, that's like escaping the spaces. Those errors don't occur anymore. So just make sure that you have no spaces here. I'll just go ahead and change my path. This is just a description that will get added. Calculator project. Yeah, I'll go to next. This is kind of the package name. The format of the package is com, and then there is your company name, and there is your app name, right? Why we do this is to make your app's package name unique, right? Because if there is no package name, then you won't be able to differentiate between different apps, and anyone could theoretically clone your app. So this is very important, so that this is kind of a uniquely identifying key for each and every app. So no two apps should have the same package name. That is the reason we use this format, because it is the company name and then the app name, right? So only if there is another company which has the same company name and the same app name, only there, then it could be a reason that your apps could clash, if we are talking about package name, right? So that is the reason this is kind of a format that we have used. You may also see in Java packages in everywhere, we use the same kind of format. So um, Android X, it asks if it wants to use Android X artifacts. What Android X is before like 2019, we had so many support libraries from Android side that it was hard to get track of each and every changes that were occurring on the support libraries, and the whole thing was very messy. So what Google did is bundle one single Android X suite of or pack of libraries, and then they provided this to the developers. So make sure you check the AndroidX artifacts. Now, whenever you are implementing a package, right, support AndroidX, right? So, firstly, like almost most of the plugins have been updated to AndroidX, but however, in any case, they do not support AndroidX. We can migrate that particular package to AndroidX or your project to AndroidX. I'll show you how in next steps if we get any of such libraries. Again, we have been asked what languages for each platform do you want to use. It says Kotlin and Swift. That seems correct. And now I'll just create the Flutter project. You can see the folder has been created here. You can also see that in the project structure, right, I have a Windows directory, right? I have a Linux directory, iOS, Android. So this directory, all these are platform specific folders that we can kind of, that Flutter executes the code in, right? So for example, in Android and app, you'll be able to see the Kotlin files here. You'll be able to see the manifest file here, which will have to change if you want to add any permissions here, right? So again, if you want to change any permissions or add any permissions, we'll have to change those in this platform specific file. Folder, sorry. Let me go ahead and go to project files. So let me start my emulator. So yeah, so apart from this platform specific file, right? If even if the these four folders are not present, will be able to execute our Flutter project. What we need is a lib folder and the pubspec.yaml folder. Talking about pubspec, right? What this is just a file which has the app name. It has app description, what version of the app you want to compile in, the SDK of Flutter, what SDK of Flutter are we running in, right? It has the package library of Cupertino icons, that is the iOS styled icons if you want to use that in our app. What SDK it uses, so it can use Flutter or even any other SDK, right? And it can define any other what we say package dependencies or libraries that we are implementing over here. Also the assets and images that we want to define, that goes here, right? You can see how they have commented out the, how we can implement the TTF or the font files here. I don't think we'll be implementing font files in this current project. Let me just comment out this.
So if the font files go here, why create our own theme packages?
Okay, so you can think pubspec YAML file as kind of a directory which just lists out that this files are needed, right? So that goes ahead and compiles that particular file, but that doesn't mean that the app takes off on that those files automatically, right? We'll have to create a Dart file in which we'll define that this kind of font is present. Use this font in this text, right? So that
Gotcha.
kind of thing that will be defining in the theme file, right?
Okay.
Um,
So PubSmack YAML is like a holder for all the features or all the external things that we're gonna use.
exactly. Also, it has the version information of Flutter
Right.
and the app. If you see this, right, this is the version information of the app. It says it is version 1.0.0. It says this stands, the last decimal stands for patch. This is a minor release and this is a major release. Patch, what it means is, for example, if we have a bug, right, we kind of solved that bug and we want to release that particular app to the users. I'll just update 0 to 1 and then I can release this version to the users. What minor means is some kind of minor bug fixes that we have done, right? With which is more than patch, and we have introduced a new suite of features. In that case, we'll just be upgrading the minor decimal point to 1 plus. And if we are making any breaking changes that may not be compatible with the previous version, that is more that makes more sense if we are developing plugins or libraries, right? In an app it does not, but even in plugins we have same kind of versioning structure. So for example, I'm upgrading my plugin to like second version, in which I have made a breaking change in which the apps or the projects which are using my plugin, right? if they would upgrade to this, they'll have to make some kind of changes on the code, because I've done those changes so that the previous version of projects won't be able to use those things. So in those kind of breaking change, I'll be incrementing the major version. So for now, let's keep it one. So whenever, okay, I'll just get back to this when we are adding new libraries and packages, which we'll do soon enough. Let me go to Laborite. Now our whole Dart file structure and the Flutter app will be going into the lib folder. So inside lib, you'll find a main.dart file, right? Main is kind of an entry point for the app, and the function main is the entry point of this particular file. So let me clear all the comments. We can see that Flutter has kind of provided skeleton code or an example app which is runnable right now. Let me clear out this too. Okay, yeah, it's more readable. Let me compile this app while I explain you what is this. So the first line says import packaged flutter / material.dart. So if you think about the last session that we talked, I told that we have material and Cupertino. So this material.dart is a Dart file which gives us access to buttons, text editing controllers, switches, and all kinds of different layouts which are defined in material style, right? So each and every button and all the controls or widgets that will be using will be getting that from the material.dart file. That is the reason we are importing this, right? Now, since I said that main function is kind of the entry point of the app, we'll start our code or return our app to the main file. Now what the arrow and is equals and the this bracket signifies is this is called something as a lambda function. What this equates to is yeah, so all this signifies is nothing but a function, right? You can write this as this. But what a lambda function does is if there is only one line that is present inside a particular function, right? It will take up 3 lines. So what we can do to shorten this code is we can escape this brackets, right? And we can put equals and bracket and then this line, right? Whatever the function exists inside this function. So this is equals to run being defined run app in the main function, right? Okay, so I'll let me tell you what is happening inside this code. So inside the function main, we have run app, right? We have a function called run app, and then we have something called my app. So what run app is kind of a function that returns or runs the app which is inside the bracket. Simple. What is inside the bracket? It is an app, or we can say a kind of a stack of widgets, because in Flutter everything is a widget, right? So even the app boils down to one single widget, right? If I control and click on my app, I'll be able to see that it is a class named my app, right? Which extends stateless widget. So if you remember, extends is used for an abstract class. So stateless widget is an abstract class. Now, what is stateless widget? Again, we had discussed that there are two kinds of widgets. One is stateless and second is stateful, right? So if you want to define a stateless widget, what you'll do is simply you'll say class, right? Whatever the class's name is, then you'll extend the class stateless widget. That's it. And inside that we'll override the method of build, right? This is the method which we have inherited from the stateless widget, right? Since this is an abstract class. And what this method will do is it will return a widget, right? Since stateless widget should return a widget, right? So it will return a widget of material app. It says return and material app. So material app is kind of an object that is getting returned in this method build from the class my app that extends stateless widget, right? So don't get overwhelmed. You'll be able to write the whole function with a boilerplate with a shortcut key, right? You don't have to actually remember this, but just understand the concept that why we are kind of extending stateless widget and why is the code like this, right? So let us go ahead and dive into what material app is. So what material app is it is a parent to all the other widgets, right? So this, if you in the emulator you see there is a app bar, there is a label, right? There is a floating action button. So all this we have to house all those widgets in one single widget, right? And that is the material app that we return, right, as one single widget. So in material app we'll be able to define theming, which we can see here. So we can see that theme, and then we have returned a kind of an object of theme data in which we say the primary swatch or the primary color is blue color, right? So again, what is material app? It is a widget. It is nothing but a widget with if you see this, right, title, theme, home. If you remember how we implemented named parentheses or named arguments inside a constructor, this is how we will do practically. So we have passed the title, Flutter Demo, and then we have passed theme data as colors.blue. So we can see the app is whole blue. And then we have something called home, right? So home is an argument in which we should, pass the entire app, right? So entire app meaning the body from here to here, right? Now, if I go into home, we can see that now they have defined a stateful widget, right? They have defined a stateful widget, and there are some constructors, right? Because the name of this is this name of class. So this is a constructor which takes in title, right? The title is taken from here. It says Flutter Demo homepage. So that is what is shown here, Flutter Demo homepage, right? So now this this whole thing is a stateful widget. This whole thing is a stateless widget, right? So the difference between how we code stateful and stateless widget is, in stateless widget we have a single class, right? In stateful widget, what we'll do is we'll say we'll again class the class name, then we'll use extends, and then stateful widget, right? Here it was stateless widget, here we have stateful widget, and then we have used constructor. We may or may not use constructor, right, depending upon our needs. Then we have something called create state method. What it does is it uh, it says create state, and then it uses this lambda function and it calls this another class, right, which is again the implementation of this class. So this is called my homepage. This is called my homepage state. So what this second class does is it extends this original class, right? It says extends the state of my homepage. So I know this is kind of confusing. What you have to learn from this is on we have two classes in stateful widgets and we have just one class in stateless widget. Why we have two classes is because we need to call this create state method, right? Why would we call this is if you remember, stateful widgets need to redraw it themselves, right? That is the reason we call create something called create state, right? So we tell Flutter that yes, like this is a stateful widget, we will have to repaint this widget's boundaries. Now let me quickly run through the stateful widgets, whatever we return from the stateful widget. So then what I'll do is I'll clear this whole both the functions out and code this very same app, right, on my own, so you'll get a better understanding how and why we are using this. So it has something called scaffold. Scaffold, you have to remember, if we are defining material app, the child of material app, in the home of material app will use scaffold. It is not compulsory, but why would we use scaffold is we'll be able to define app bar, right, body, and something like floating action button or bottom navigation bar inside scaffold. So if you want all these things that obviously we definitely will want in any app, right, we'll be defining a scaffold, right, in which we have an app bar which has a title, right? You can see there is a title here. In the body section, which is here, what we have is we have center, right? So since the center widget is used, both the text fields are aligned in center, right? It has a column, right? What column means is any number of widgets that you define inside a column, right, are stacked one below the each other, right? So you have the first widget, that is the text. You have pushed the button this many times. So that is the first thing, the first widget. And then we have the other text which says counter, right? And we have this counter, right, which is below the text, first text. So that is what column does, is it stacks the widget one below other. We can use the same thing if we want to, stack the widgets one after other. We'll just use row instead of column, right? And at last we have floating action button, which takes the widget floating action button, and on pressed it says increment counter. So this increment counter is a function, right? If I control and click it, we can see that we are incrementing something, right? What that something is we can see that it is defined here, an integer of named counter, which is first initialized as 0, right? So it is getting incremented from 0. So if I click on this, we can know that it is incrementing, right? So again, that was kind of a quick dive through of this code. I'll just clear this code and write the
So
very same app.
I just have one question. So
Yeah,
the set state,
yeah.
can you explain the difference between, I mean, why and how it gets used?
Yeah, so that is a pretty great question. I was going to explain, but I didn't because I wanted to do it with my code.
Sure,
So
sure, sure.
yeah,
Then go ahead.
now I'll just give you an outline why it is used. Is set state is a function, right? Function or a keyword, whatever you call. That is, we add that in any function where we want to update the UI, right? So where do we update the UI in this app, right? It is only when we click this button, right? So user does some action and we expect the app to update some portion of the UI. Now we know for a fact that we have defined this portion as a this whole portion as a stateful widget. So now we are confident that yes, we'll be able to update this, since this is a stateful widget, right? We can't call set state method in a stateless widget, right? So now, what this does is this tells Flutter that yes, something has been changed in the screen. You go and repaint the UI, right? So it will go and repaint the entire UI, entire wherever the stateful widget is defined. So from here, this whole thing will be repainted, and that is the reason you are able to see the updated count. Now, what if, right? I just comment out this set state portion, just leave counter right like that, right? What will happen then? Any thoughts? What do you think? Like if I just comment out the set state, what will happen? Will the actual integer get incremented? Will you be able to see the UI update or not?
The integer will get incremented, but you won't see it in the
Exactly.
UI.
Yep. So again, let me hot reload and debug, and you can see that the integer itself is updated and it is not updated on the screen itself, right? So again, if I bring this in or reload, and we can see this updated. So just remember, wherever we are changing anything related to incoming data, or if the user types something, we'll have to call set state so that Flutter can repaint that particular canvas to reflect those changes. um, Let me just clear the code, um, and just clear the code. Now, instead of creating one stateless widget and creating one stateful widget, I'll create the whole thing in stateful widget. This is because it will be less complex and easy to understand. So I want to create a stateful widget with this name. It is not necessary. Okay, let me change this to home screen, right? What I'll do is, after you have installed the Flutter, all right. I forgot how to. I forgot you to show you how to enter the paths of. First of all, let me go to plugins, and here you can see I have Dart and Flutter installed, right? So you'll need to have these two plugins installed, and I'll say paths. Let me see if that comes up. Dart, right? So inside Dart, we'll have to set the Dart SDK path as this. Wherever your Flutter directory is, then bin, then cache, and then Dart SDK. What you actually should do is first, set the part of Flutter. and this should be automatically set. So I'll say Flutter should be here. Yeah. So if you go into languages and frameworks and then choose Flutter, you'll just have to add this path, right? And then just click on enable hot UI. So that will, enable this hot node. And then you just apply and click OK. That will be the last step of, installing Flutter. And then you should see the, the color coding of the code. And at that point, you'll be able to, run the Flutter app. So, oh yes. So once you have set the Dart or Flutter SDK, what you have to, if you want to define a stateless widget, just write st, and then you'll get suggestions of stateless, right? And stateful. I want to define a stateful widget, right? Just hit on enter, and the name of the widget, right? So this is kind of an extremely good example of skeleton of stateful widget. So I have the home screen that extends stateful, and I'm calling create state on the class name home screen state, and that again extends a state of the home screen, right? So this is just a skeleton of stateful widget. So here what I'll return is a material app, right? Material app, I'll have, I guess, home. There I'll return a scaffold. In scaffold, what I want is I want an app bar, right? I'll say app bar, and then I'll say app bar, right? And in the app bar, I want a title, right? I'll say title. And for title, I'll pass a text widget because in title, I want a text, right? So text, and I'll say Flutter Demo homepage, right? Flutter Demo homepage, right? Then I want this labels, right? So I'll say body. In body, I want a column, right? Because these are stacked one below each other. But then they should be in the center too. So I'll just say center. Then I'll say the child of the center should be a column, right? And then since column expects a list of widget and center expects a single widget, so inside center I'll have a single child, right? But in column I'll have something called children, in which I have multiple children, right? So firstly I'll have a text saying you have pushed the button this many times. So you have pushed the button this many times. Yeah. And then I should have another text saying however many times I've pressed this button, right? So for that, I'll have to introduce or declare an integer which will take care of the amount of times this is pressed. So what I'll do is I'll just define an integer. I'll say counter and is equals to 0. By the way, we are making like declaring an underscore here and here because in Dart, whenever you type an underscore before a data type, it means that that particular data type is private, right? I'll show you an example of how this changes if you add or do not add the underscore before the data type, but currently it does not matter. So here it should display the counter, right? So I'll just say counter, but it says error because counter is an integer and the text widget expects a text or a string as an input. So I'll just say to string, right? So we have this body defined, and now at last we'll have floating action button. We'll take floating action button as widget, and inside floating action button we'll have, okay, this is showing error because I've not put a comma here. Since this we are declaring widgets one after another, we have to get a comma here, since after all these are parameters that we are passing into the scaffold widget. So inside you can see that there is an icon of plus, right? So I can say icon, I'll say child, and then I'll say icon. Okay, I should be on tabs icon. I'll say icons dot add, and it will return a plus, right? Now I'll just press Control Alt and L so it gets formatted correctly. Now if I run this app, right, it will the colors will be off since I've not defined a theme data. So what I'll do is I'll just say theme, then theme data, and then I'll say primary swatch colors dot blue. Uh, yeah. Also, you can see that this text here is bigger than this text. So all I'll have to do is define a style, right? So I'll say comma, the style of this particular text should be theme dot of context dot text theme and then display one. Again, I'll cover what this long kind of thing is whenever I'm covering the theming of the app. But just for now, remember that I'm calling a display one that is kind of a preset of a style. So I'll just hot reload. It says static target, unimplemented static target. Um, Counter to string. Let me restart the app. Yeah. So we can see we get something like that. It is up at the top. Why? We have center and then we have column, right? Inside column, right? This whole thing is a column, right? So inside column, if you I want to make it to center, right? I'll define main axis alignment, which dictates wherever the position of the children inside it. So if I say main axis um, alignment dot center, then it should come to the center, right? And this is exactly what we had at the start. In the floating action button, I'll say on pressed, it takes a function. So I'll just define a function over here that is bracket and then braces. Then all I'll say is counter plus plus, right? But we need to call set state. Only then this will get updated. So I'll say set state and then I'll say counter plus plus and just reload the app and we'll get that original app. Um, Okay, so this was kind of a walkthrough of the example app that we had, right? I don't think we have much time left for the actual app that we want to implement. What should we do? Like we have the remaining 12 minutes. Should we continue with that and continue with the, wherever we leave today in the no whenever the next class is, or should we continue the calculator?
Totally up to you. However you think is fine.
I'm sorry, I lost you. My headphones got disconnected.
I'm saying it's totally up to you. However you think is fine.
Okay. You are available till next 12 minutes right now, right?
I can actually stay till 10:30 today.
Okay, you can. So in
Yeah.
that case, I think that we should complete at least the calculator app so then you can get time to review the code as much as you can, even if you get breaks in between.
Okay.
All right. So till now, was it super confusing, or you knew maybe everything already, or how was
No,
it? Any
so
questions?
I kind of knew all this. Like I know the structure of the code and the stateless widget and stateful widget. My confusion, but whatever you explained, I understood, and it was helpful to understand that on state is only put where you need the UI to change. That was always something I was confused about,
Okay.
and now I understand how what do you call a stateful widget is written because of the two classes, etc., etc. My confusion still, I was just listening to you and thinking. So my confusion is, um, one, why did we write all the scaffolding and all of the that part under stateful widget? Probably because we wanted a section that changes based on a user action. That's
Mhm.
why. The second, just my confusion is with Flutter itself. I mean, which themes or which widgets get defined where and why. those kind of things. But they'll go away with more practice and more like issues. So the more
Yeah.
I code, the more I'll
Um.
understand why it is like that.
Mhm. Okay, so both are good questions. Firstly, why we wrote everything under stateful widget is this is not kind of desirable approach, right? We should only define stateful widget wherever we know that the things are changing. But here we can see that the app bar is not changing, even though this first text is not changing. Whatever changes is this, right? So we
Right.
should not define the whole app as a stateful widget. Well, I only did because it could be simpler to understand, right? Let me just break this code into stateful and stateless widget again, and write both of those better than it was written before. The other thing is about theming, right? Why we like where the all the widgets go about the theme. Um,
Not about the theme. I misspoke. It was about why, where do the different widgets go? Like, I mean, I think I might have to go and read the documentation why the home starts with a scaffold or material app, and then just the way the code is structured. I'm not just very used to it.
Yeah, so the very same, thoughts were in my mind, right? I was very confused because first of all, it has design and the actual logic in the same kind of file. But once start getting familiar, you'll know the advantages why we have that. And yeah, it is very easy to get your code super messed up if you have long nested widgets and if you don't classify them properly. Um, the answer to your question why we use this widgets, right? So starting with the material app, right? Just remember that material app we can define something called theme, right? If we like we can remove material app. Let me show you. I'll just instead of this, let me just return a scaffold, right? We can perfectly do that. Not scaffold, I'll say widget that what we are. And okay, I guess we can't do that. Um, Let me tell you the reason why. First thing is that uh, whatever this function is run app, right? It expects a material app, right? Whatever stateful or stateless widgets we of return, right? It has to have a material app because in material app, right, there is something called theming. We have to define a theme, right? If you don't have this theme, it will get confused what colors and what fonts and everything to return, right? So whatever theme we impose on this material app, the children, whatever the children, nested children we have, this theme will be applied to each and every one of them. So that is the first reason why we use material app. The run app method needs it and it has theming, right? Now we can go ahead and see what other things it has. It has routes. So routes are used for navigation, right? Opening different pages. So we'll be able to define different routes here itself. So that is the reason we need material app. Then all these are routing parameters. Then we have theme, then we have dark theme, and then we have theme mode. So all those three things help us to switch between dark and light mode. Then we have locale. So if we are implementing localization, we'll have to define those in material app. So kind of all the the miscellaneous things that we want our app to have, those kind of parameters and functions material app provides, so that it can take that and add that to our app. Now same for scaffold, right? In scaffold itself we have an app bar, right? So we'll want an app bar inside our app. So it contains a parameter called app bar where we can define an app bar. It also has center, right? Sorry, body, in which we'll able to define the whole body. And it has something called floating action button. If you want to define an app drawer or bottom navigation bar or a tab bar, all those will only be able to do once we introduce this scaffold widget. So that is the reason this is important, right? So this did that answer your question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me now go ahead and see. Let us now continue with the calculator app, right? So I was just going through Dribble and I found this kind of design that I like for a calculator app. I guess will be following this.
Give me 1 second. I got a quick call. Give me like
Okay,
one
sure.
minute. Sorry, that was a call from my professor. I couldn't ignore.
Yeah, no issues. Um, yeah, so I was thinking about implementing this kind of light layout here. So this will, kind of give us information about how rows and columns are arranged, a kind of color touch, and how everything is done with in regards to set state and reactive programming. Um, I'll the whole code I'll be doing in main itself, so it doesn't get super complicating. So I'll go ahead and change uh, start the change from this as well. We can see that there is no title, right? So I'll just say Baris, doesn't have any title. So now, so fully blank app that we have got. Now, what I'll need is, first of all, I'll need a column, right? This is because we can see the whole layout to be arranged in a vertical sort of manner. So first we'll have the kind of text view in which we'll add the whole expression, and then we'll have results, and then we have the keypad. So I'll say children, right? The first we'll have expressions, second we'll have um, results, right? and the last will be having keypad. I'll add a text here, right? I'll just say this is where expressions will be, right? I'll just add theming here. It is plain black, right? Now we want, first of all, it to start from the right. So there is something called text align. I'll say text align dot right, but this won't affect it. This should not affect it because, let me just hot reload. It is not affecting this because it is inside a column widget, right? So if you see the text, right, it will be occupying only this much space, right? So in this much space, let me use Flutter Inspector. Am I able to highlight this? Yeah. So if you see this text, right, it is only occupying this much space. So there is no space for it to go to the right side because it is under the column, right? And the column is only giving it this much space. So remember how we can set main axis alignment in column. I can say main axis um dot end. In that case, it should go to the right. Okay, I can't see. Oh, text. Okay, yeah. So since the column is a vertical, right, it has been laid out here, but we want a right side. So instead of main axis, I'll say cross axis and cross axis. So in cross axis should be on the right again. It's not. Okay, so that is because I guess the text, the whole panel that text is getting is not a full width. So what I'll do is text, right? I'll just wrap this text in a row widget, and I'll define a main axis inside that particular row. And I'll say just go to the right side. That's it. Let me clear this from column. And we can see that now this looks super ugly because it doesn't have padding, right? So I'll add padding of say 12 from all the sides. Now if you can see, it has the color is of gray and the font size is a little bit bigger, right? Let me just increase the padding. Now we want to first of all increase the font size, right? So I'll say style, right? Here I'll have to add a text style, and there I'll add a font size. Font size should be, let me try and make it 18. And I'll also say font weight. Here it will take an object of font weight, and I can do bold, but bold will be too big. Let me see W400 and see how it goes. Also, I want to define color, right? And it should be color start gray. I think I should do it 22. Yeah, this is maybe better. Okay, now I'll just replicate the second text box. Same, but here I'll be doing something like purple, deep purple, deep purple. What is I should add a comma here. Let me do. So I can see that there is so much space between them. Is that because of padding? I think it will be, yeah, let me, instead of giving the padding from all sides, I'll just say padding from left should be 0, top should be not 0, but let's say 10, right should be 28, and from bottom should be, let's say, let's make the same change here. Yeah. Here it should be 24. Just get rid of this. So we have kind of two text boxes, which are, this is way larger. It should be something like this. Yeah. Maybe you are bigger. See result. Yeah, so this kind of text is laid out. Now all I want to add is this number pad with this buttons, right? So here, instead of defining the whole keypad here, we'll just make a new method or a function here. So instead of logging this UI, I'll be defining it into a new function. I'll say get keypad, and it will be get used here, right? So I'll just return, let's say a column in which there'll be children, right? So first will be 7, 8, and 9. So this will be first row, should be second, and there should be a third. In the first row we have row and children, right? I have 7, I have 8, 9, and division. Yeah. So I guess the best widget we can put here is text itself. So what I'll say, I'll again borrow the text from not here, but let's say here. I'll say the text to be 7. You don't have to define any alignment. And let's make the same text in 8 and 9. Replace 7 with 8 and with 9. Let's see how it looks. Says error. Okay, there has to be a comma. Okay, so we can get 7, 8, 9. The size is super low. I'll increase the size. And you can see that they are kind of, a club on each other. So in row, right, wherever we implemented the main axis alignment in column, it would affect it vertically. But since row is aligned horizontally, right, if I say main axis alignment and I'll say space evenly, it will affect this horizontally. So now we can see that the whole buttons or the text are aligned horizontally properly. A few things. This should be clickable, right? But we have not defined buttons here because we wanted 0 elevation and 0 colors, right? So we will have to do something to take the click action from the user. So what we can do is we can wrap the text in a widget called inkwell. So what inkwell does is it gives us a method named onTap, right? So each and every time user presses this, right? I'll say print and like, right? So each and every time user clicks this 7, right? We can see now the animation occurring on 7, right? We'll be able to see the click, we'll be able to get the click value. We can do the same with the rest of the buttons. I'll say widget inkwell, then just wrap, add the on tab action. Same with 9 inkwell. Yeah, just format the code. And now we have the buttons, right? And the last thing we have is this kind of structure. So we have text of division sign, and then it is colored in purple, and we have kind of a faded purple. So let's see how we can achieve that. Let me again add the very same thing here, text, right? And there should be division here, and instead of gray it should be purple, deep purple, right? Now what we can do is wrap this text in a container, right? And container has a property of color in which we can say colors dot purple. Let me give this, but if I do this, it will look super ugly because it is the whole contrasty purple. I can say dot, I can say with alpha, Let me put alpha at 150. Um, 80, right? Even now, it's just wrapping into it. What I want is it fully, it has some area inside it. So I'll maybe add padding here and see what happens. I'll say add in insets dot all and let me add padding of 12. I'm trying to close this. Good. Okay. Huh. So I guess like if I do it this way, right? Uh, I don't think I'll be able to get this whole continuous per. So what I'm thinking is instead of defining the row here, why is it so laggy suddenly? Let me go ahead and close the browser.
Hello.
Say 12. Um, and it should look better. Say 12. Do this over 9 times. So about adding gain here to it should be of 12. And the last row. So this should be kind of better arranged. So we have the on click of each and every text. Now what we need to add is kind of this, right? The operators. What I'll do, let me minimize this. So this whole is a row, right? Sorry, column, right? That we are returning. What I'll do is wrap this column in a row. So what we'll be able to do is this kind of column will be the first kind of element of the row, and I'll be able to add another set of numbers here, the buttons here, as a second element of the row. So what I'm talking about is this is a column, right? Let me just add a row, right? So the whole keypad, this is the number pad, that is the first element of this row. Then I'll add an operator pad here, right? And here too, I'll just go ahead and steal the code from here. What I'll need is here, I'll need a row, sorry, a column, right? Since it will be one below each other. So I'll say column Then I'll say children, right? The first should be division. Um, so I'll just add the previous thing here, say divide, and then this should be purple. Um, deep purple, I guess. Yeah. So once we add all the rows, this should be center aligned. So it is multiplication minus and then addition. So multiplication subtraction. And it should be addition here. Right. Now this is kind of ugly since it is spread out this way. Um, I will be able to add padding and everything to make this kind of better. Row, I'll say cross axis alignment to be stretch maybe. No, space. Okay, this I don't think helps. Recenter here. Center I should just write start this alignment and start. It should at least start at the same point. Let me also reduce the text size to 24 so it looks better. Okay. Also now we have this kind of purple background color over this. So what I'll do is this entire column I'll wrap it with a container. I'll say color and colors dot um, should be purple accent with alpha, and I'll just say maybe 100. Let's see. No, this looks way bad. Let me do 40. 20. Maybe better. And which other purples we have? I guess let us skip this for now. We'll be able to make it better. Now I kind of want to increase the size in this column. I should say main axis alignment to be spaced evenly. Same for this column. Here I should say main axis to be spaced evenly. Okay. I think I should increase the padding a bit further. The 32 should be. And, okay, we have space evenly already in the row. We can increase the padding here from padding to 32. Similarly, in the last, we'll increase the padding to 32. 32. I missed the last row. This. Yep. These are kind of better spread out, and we can see that I can get a better hitbox with this. Also, we can see that the first kind of this is taking almost 40% of the screen, and our keypad is taking way too much. What we can do is here we can either add a padding here, but that won't be good because it will just take up white space, or We'll have to make this larger. First of all, I'll do it, make it 42. And I'll add a padding here. So let's say padding of, okay, this already has a padding. Just increase the bottom padding to 48. Okay, this was the left, 48. This one was the top. Let's make it 72. Further 82. Yeah, this looks a little better. Now we'll go ahead and do the last row. So what we'll do is we'll wrap this row in a column. Should I do that? Or yeah. So first of all, I'll have to, resize this kind of element so that the height of this operators is equals to the keypad, or it will just not look proper. So I'll again have to decrease maybe the padding here, 28. See if it goes up. Maybe a little less, 22. Yeah, now this is better. So let me wrap this row, this entire, the keypad with a column so that I'll be able to add here, right? So I'll say column, then this is the, first half of the keypad. And here is the second half. Now all I need is a row, right? I'll need a row of point, 0, back button, and is equals to, right? So the first should be point or dot, right? This should be point. Just a second. Yes, sorry about that. The first one should be a point. Second should be 0. This should be a back button, right? So this should not be a text. Instead, what we'll do, we'll remove the ink well. Instead of text, the child should be an icon button. The difference between an icon and an icon button is icon button wraps over the icon to make it clickable. So what I mean by that is I can define an icon button. I can define an icon in it, right? Icon, and then I'll say icons dot left arrow, maybe the um huh, let me say arrow. Yeah, arrow back, and the color has is purple. So I'll say colors dot purple. Is it purple accent? And it should take a field called on pressed. It will execute when this kind of icon is pressed. So I'll leave it blank for now. Yeah, let me remove the text. And now we can see that there is an icon here, which is again clickable. The last thing we need to add is a n is equals to, right? Should be and we have an equals to. So rather than making this as a text, let me try and add this in a button, right? So we have flat button, and then we have make a text or a child. Yep, we have text, and there we can add whatever text we want, and then the color of the it will be in style, text style, and here we'll be able to color. The color of the text should be white. So we'll say colors dot white, and maybe the size, font. Did we define size in this? What was the size? Font size is 32. Wait, yep. Let's read that from here. You can't see. Yeah, because I've not given a color to this button. I'll say colors dot um X text text. I guess I'll have to reload the app. Reload. Oh, this is not purple. This is black. Let me should be gray, not purple. Okay, so for some reason we are not able to see the gray, the flat button.
Maybe because the text is in white.
Thought so too. That should have been the reason, but then I colored the flat button in, purple. What other? Does it have a text? It does not.
It had a text color property.
Oh, yeah, so let me try that. Text color. I don't think it should make a difference because we have already defined. Okay, so instead of flat color, we can use raised button, but then in that case, it will give us an elevation that we may not want. Characteristics. Because even in Flutter Inspector, right? Yeah, so it appears here. So for some reason, right, it is not reflecting the color. Huh. Is there any other color? Disable focus color, highlight over splash column. Nah. Let me. We'll have a raise button. Let's keep it as a raise button for now. Huh. Yeah, it is showing gray because we have not implemented on pressed, right? Since we have not implemented the on press section, the button will get automatically disabled. That is the reason we are not seeing any shadows. Let me save. It turns into this. So let me again try and get with the flat button. Was that the issue there? Yeah, so now we can see the flag button is appearing. It was just that we didn't have implemented the on press button. It kind of goes too much in. Maybe we'll wrap this in the padding. I'll say from LRTV or only. We want the padding only from, let's say, right. 5 makes a difference. Yeah. In that case, let me make it a symmetric and let me make it horizontal. So it will cut off 12 from both sides. Uh, Similarly, in pad should be 0. I guess we'll have this piece. This is kind of not the color that we wanted. It is kind of a bluish purple. Do we have a, yeah, we should have used deep purple. Yep, this makes sense. Yeah, so let us go ahead and implement the actual logic of what we need to do. So firstly, whenever I click something, right, it should appear as an expression here. So what I'll do for that, I'll have to define a string. I'll actually define two strings. One is the expression and the other is result. So I'll say string, right, str expression. I'll initialize it with 0, then an empty string, sorry, and then I'll say result, which will be an empty string, right? And the both texts should reflect the expression and the empty, sorry, the result, right? Now, whenever this is empty, right, we have not done anything. I would also like it to display that nothing is here, or tap keypad to start or continue. So what I'll do is I'll use the ternary operator here. What I'll say is the if the expression, if this expression is maybe empty, right? Just say that start tap on the keypad to calculate. And if it is not empty, right, just return the string. And so we'll have this text, right? And here, as a starting text, let me, just display 0 here. Why does it not show? Let me reload. Yeah, so it shows 0.0, right? Now, whenever we click this buttons, right, it should appear here. So that should be a simple fix. Wherever we have on tap, all we'll do is whatever the string of expression is, add this particular string. So if it is 7, right, to the already existing string. So something like that. But also we should not forget to call the set state method, or it won't show, right? So I'll just call the set state and update the string. So if I click on 7, it should print 7, right? Simple enough. I'll do the same for every, right? So instead of doing the same, right, let me just create a new function. I'll just say up, update expression, right? I'll just update this expression with string str value, whatever string that we are getting. Should be instead of this, I'll say string value, and here I'll just say, then I'll do 7, right? And again, I don't have to use this braces. What I can do is simply use the equals and this, right? So, and this will get removed. So we have this one liner method. I'll do the same for 8, should be 8, and similarly 9. Let me save and check, right? Again, you can do that for 4, 5, 6, and the last row. should be 2, not 3. 3. The same should go for division. Just divide, right? Instead of this, I'll just output a slash. If it is multiply, instead of x, I would output a multiplication sign. Instead of here, I'll say minus and plus. And if it is a decimal point, I'll just type a decimal point 0, right? And for the last two here, right? I don't want to add anything, but I'll just remove the last point. So I'll say the first of all I'll call set state, and then I'll say if the string has something, right? So length is more than 0, and I'll also check that if the string is not null. In that case, what I'll do is just update the string substring. So yeah, I'll call substring. I'll say start from 0 and at whatever dot length -1. Should it be -1 or -2? It should be -2, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, it should be -1. 0 to -1. Yeah. Um, I didn't make any changes except here. You can see the corner of the this kind of column, the container, right, is kind of rounded. So how I achieved it is that this whole column, vertical column, was wrapped in a container, right? Container has a property called decoration. Decoration, we can define a box decoration, and in that we can pass an argument called border radius. And in border radius, you can say border radius dot all, and then I can say radius dot circular. Then I can give out however curved or rounded borders I want. So if I make it 15, it will become a little more rounded. Let me make it 10. This looks good. Let me have a look in flat button 2 if we can do that, because this button looks too much straightforward, too much edgy. Yes, does it take shape? Yep, it takes shape. Rectangular shape border. Shape dot rectangle. Oh, okay, let us get back to the corner. So last time we did all the button tabs. Yes, and we also added the backspace. All right, so this was done last time, right? Now all we have to do is actually add how the calculations should take place, right? Because this whatever we are entering here, that is displayed fine, but how do we calculate? The first problem that we should have is, for example, if I'm writing 32 plus 1, right? So this itself can't be added, right? We'll have to logically separate 32 and 1, right? Then add. The thing about this is this whole thing is a string and not, for example, array of integers, right? So we can either parse the entire, sorry, we can either parse the entire string, get the numbers operators between them, and then perform the calculations. Although that would be quite extensive. Um, there is a library here in pub.dev. So whenever you want a package or a library, you just hop onto pub.dev. You can search for packages that are available for Dart or Flutter or both of them, right? So I'll go ahead and write expressions. I don't remember the exact name. should be math expressions. Now, one more thing while you are browsing through the libraries, right, is that let me write, let's say auto complete here. Uh, Let me go ahead and open any of these. So here there are different tags. It shows you in what platforms is this library compatible with. So it says it is compatible with Android, iOS, and web. Some packages are not compatible with each and every one of the platforms. So this is something you need to take into consideration when you are going for multi-platform projects. Back to our library, we can see this is a name and this is the version of our library. We'll just go ahead and copy it. It says it's a library for parsing and evaluating mathematical expressions. All right, this is what we want. Um, in our project, we'll head on to PubSpec and we'll paste the library name here and then give it a colon, a caret, and this is our library added. One thing to note here is this file is space sensitive. So, for example, this is just like Python that dependencies is here and Flutter is two spaces ahead of after dependencies. That means that Flutter lies inside the dependencies. So you just have to make sure that you are leaving two spaces ahead of your library. And after you do this, you just click on pubget and it should, get the library files and it says finish with exit code 0. That means that it has taken the library. Let me go ahead and see the usage. So we can define it like this. Parser. Okay. Let me go ahead and take this. And I'll want to calculate the result when I click on equals, right? So here we're defining parser. Now it says it goes crazy at me here because we have not imported the file. I'll just hit Alt plus Enter. It'll ask me to import match underscore expressions. I'll say yes. So here what we have done is we have defined an object of parser and we are saying that just parse this expression. Instead of this expression that we, by the way, have to add as a string, and conveniently we do have this as a string here. All I'll do is I'll say um, string expression, and it should parse and through the output here. Um, so this exp is what that holds the answer, right? So let us see what are the methods inside the expression. It says toString derive evaluate. I think toString should be the answer. So let's go ahead and say string result equals this, and let me call it under set state. So let's see. The first step is we have defined a parser. Then what we have done is we have defined a context model class that is to you know specify that the expression is of real numbers, and then we'll just have to call expression on p.parse. So what it will do, this method dot parse method will just go ahead and simplify the expression. So our expression here is string result, and then once we get that particular expression in the expression variable, I'll just say expression dot evaluate, and then we'll be calling this on real numbers and we'll just convert the converted or the evaluated expression to string, right? And we would want this answer and string result. Yeah, so this is nothing fancy. What I've done is in the documentation of the library itself they have written that um, here that if you want to solve any equation, first of all just yeah, declare a context model, and then we don't want to solve for x and y, so we can skip this. We'll just define a answer or a double where the answer will get stored. We'll define an expression that is also given by this particular library, and we'll call the evaluate method. Since we are solving for a real number, we'll say evaluation type dot real, and then we'll pass this context model here. And whenever we call wherever we call dot evaluate function, it will just return the answer and then it will get stored wherever you are assigning the value to. So So now if you go ahead and see, we get the answer, right? One more thing in the app is you can see that there is a small a clear button here. So we'll go ahead and quickly do that. So the first is expression, second is results. In the results, after the text, I want the button, right? So here I'll need to define it. Here I'll say icon button. I'll say icon and icon icons dot say rows, and then I'll say colors dot maybe purple, and then I'll define size of let's say 30. This might be too big, but I'll set it. I'll say on pressed, and whenever I press it, what I'll do is I'll just clear the result and maybe even expression. So I'll clear both expression and result. Let me just format this. So this is too much below. So I'll just wrap this inside a padding. Let's see, from left should be 0, top should be 10, okay, bottom, and this is right, that should be 0. Okay, okay. Let's make the body 78. Let's make it 62. Okay. Here, let's. This result is too much on the left side, so I'll just reduce the padding of right hand side and maybe make it 8. Let's make it 0. And the size of the icon button should be 12. 12 should be too small. 24. If you see, this icon is kind of covered by a circular thing. So we can do two things. We can either wrap it by circular avatar, or we can wrap it inside a container and make the whole container as circular. So let me try and okay, inside a circular circle of that. Okay, and then I should have a background color. Here I should be able to say colors dot. I should be able to say purple accent dot with alpha. Let's make it 20. Let's make it a little bit better. What was the color here that I used? I think that it was purple. Sorry. And with alpha is 30. Okay. Keep it here. Also, let me remove this. I want that now the icon is too bigger. First of all, let me make it a little more transparent. Oh. Okay. My bad, I should have changed this. Let me see if there is a padding or margin. There is not. Um, Let me give a little more space here. Here too, in the right hand side, let me give a little more space. This should be smaller now. Instead of 24, let's make us 18. Is there any way I could decrease the size of circle of that? You can see background color, background image, foreground color, radius. Yep, it should work. radius. Let's make radius 18. Let's make it not 9 but 12. 16. Okay, works I guess. Just to 16 in the center. If I click here, it should get. This is not exactly how the it looks in Dribble, but in my defense, I've not worked on the typography and everything. Although we can achieve the exact same look if we actually spend more time. Also, the colors that I've used is not exactly what the color the app has. So I could have, if I were doing it professionally, I could have opened this image into Photoshop and then have gotten the exact X codes. Although the logic works fine, and my main goal was to show you how the rows and columns work, so how you can arrange super complicated things like this easily and perfectly. Also, I wanted to show how to kind of work with colors, a little bit of transparency, and how to add a library or the package dependencies.
This is amazing, and thanks for showing it to me so patiently. If you could only share, I'd like to, just practice a
Yes.
couple of days and make sure I have my questions ready.
What I'll do is I where to like I had to show Git, right. I'll just upload this whole module into GitHub. So, and each and every time we complete any assignments, I'll just commit it before we leave, right? So you'll be able to see that code easily. I'll
Perfect.
go
That's a
ahead
very
and
good plan.
yeah.
So could you tell me what GitHub? I mean, I know what GitHub is, but I mean, I haven't really used it.
Yeah. So for an introduction, GitHub is a version control system in which you can commit your code and a different, especially in a team, different people, if they are working on the same project, they can commit, push, or pull the code, and they can collaborate easily with only one source of code. And if you are using GitHub, you can be sure that you are updated with the latest changes. You can also add multiple branches for the same project. So if, for example, you are adding a new version, but you don't want to disrupt the master branch or the production branch, so in that case, you can create a new branch and then work on that branch, and then you have worked everything out and the fixes out, then you can go ahead and merge it with a master branch or the whatever the production branch is. So in that way, GitHub or any version control system is very helpful while doing projects. Also in interview kind like point of view, when you are looking for a job or any recruiter is looking at your profile, they'll have a look at all the open source projects that you have done and however contributions that you have made. So make sure if you are doing any project that is not confidential or that is kind of open source, you host it on GitHub and it is public, so that you can actually show all the projects that you have worked on. Now I'll just go ahead and create a new repository and I'll just show you how this is done. Just click here. I'll say new repository. I'll name the repository. I'll just say Flutter underscore tutorials, and I'll say Flutter. Just make this public. I don't want to initialize this with a README right now. README is nothing but a file, introductory file for that particular for that particular repository, which just gives you information about what is there inside the project. Just create the repository. Now, if I just wanted to upload this specific project, I would type in all commands here, right? But I don't want to upload only this project, but the whole folder that we'll be working on. I'll just open. Where do I find it? Open in Explorer right here. So this is the path where I'll be adding all my projects, right? So I'll want all these projects hosted on GitHub. First of all, before you even make a new repository, just make sure you have Git installed on your PC. You'll be able to download it from here. You'll be able to go to downloads, download for Windows. Once it installs on your PC, you'll be able to open a command and you'll say git and you'll be able to see all this information. If you are able to see all this, then just you can confirm that Git is installed. Similarly, if you're working on the project, you want to do specific commits, you can go like do those commits from the Android Studio terminal as well. So here also Git works, right? But I want to upload the whole folder that exists here. So what I'll do is in this, I'll just write command and enter. So will directly open a CMD in this particular path. So I won't have to say CD and I won't have to write the whole path. Here, the first line I'll write is git init. It will just initialize an empty Git repository here. So you can see .git folder has been made. Don't remove this folder from your project. This is used to keep track of all the version changes that your code you are doing on your code. The next steps, if you make a new repository, we'll write it here as well. So it says push an existing repository. Just say get a remote add origin and the URL of the um, repository. So say this, and then I can push, right? But before pushing, I'll have to make sure that all the files are added into this kind of repository, right? So Git, what it does is it kind of keeps a track of what files are changed and what files are not changed. So for that, I'll say git add space and dot. What it does is it will add each and every file present in this directory, my projects and code directory, to the local Git repository. So it will say that once you push those changes, all the files present here, all the code files will get sent out to the version control system. I'll just say enter. The first time will take some time, and then it'll get back to me. I'll say git space commit space dash m, and here I'll be able to add any comments. So each and every time we'll be making any progress, we'll be adding comments here. What that specifies is if at a later point I have a bug, and for example, I have a bug, and if I want to trace back from where it originated, I can have a look at the all the branches and the time at what files were changed, right? And each and every push that I do. And at that time also, I'll be able to see all the commands of each and every commit. So this can be helpful at that time. I'll just say created Flutter project. Now the last command is git push origin master. Yeah, so we can see that it is done. I'll just go here, refresh the page, and I'll be able to see that the Flutter calculator has been added, and you can actually go ahead and download this as a zip file, right? And then make your own changes. For example, if you download this folder, right, and place it like this inside code, right? If you want to upload your changes, what you have to do, let me just close it. Just say cmd. I'll say git. Now let's suppose, let me do some changes. Make some changes. Instead of calc, I'll say to calculate, right? I'll just hot reload and we can see the change has been done now. Let's suppose we want to add these changes into the GitHub, right? I'll again open command line. I'll say git and add. I don't necessarily have to write this command right now because we have not added any external files yet. But it is best practice to write this line anyway. So even if you have added any new file, you just don't forget to add it to the git. I'll say git commit. To give here a message, I'll say corrected a typo. Git push origin master. And here, see, if you look here, it says one file change, one insertions, one deletions. So it knows what file has been changed and how many times. So again, it has been uploaded. If I go back, if I refresh, it says committed 30 seconds ago. It just points out the latest whatever committed I have made. If I go to Flutter Calculator, it says that inside library I have corrected a typo. If I go ahead and go inside library, it will say that I've removed this line and entered this line, and this is the change that I've made. So you can see here how if there is a there's a large application, I might not be able to make like pinpoint the mistake or the bug in past that I've made in past. So in those cases, version control systems and Git is very much helpful. Other things that are important is for any repository, you can go to issues if you are having any issues, and you can make a new issue, and then the owner of the repository may fix this or reply with a solution. If you yourself have made any changes or updates to the repository, you can create a new pull request. You can push that pull request to the GitHub repository. Whoever the owner is, they can then authorize that pull request, and then your change will get reflected there. Other things are standard in settings. You'll be able to add any um, contributor. Also, you can make this your repository private at any time. Again, private repositories could be made public, and you can also archive. You'll be able to start the repository, so you'll be able to see that in the future. And what fork means is that it just get this repository just gets copied over to your profile. So that is kind of a brief overview for Git. The commands itself, you'll be able to find all the Git commands online. Any issues or if you get stuck, just ping me, or just again, there are many solutions available in Stack Overflow. Right? The other thing that I wanted to cover was calculator. This was yesterday's thing. I've done Git. I wanted to make a small application with forms and validation, right? Let me go ahead and create a new application. For the calculator app, do you have any questions?
No, what I wanted to do was, and if that's okay with you, I know these things, but I've never really practiced them. And this is such a good idea for rows and columns and
Hmm.
alignments and paddings and edge insets and those kind of you know um, features that I really want to go ahead and try to implement this myself. And
Okay.
by looking at you teaching me, I've kind of that's what I always used to like. How do
Okay.
I break it into different sections and code it step by step, then use the same section over and over again in different parts. So I just want a few days to do that myself. That's okay with you.